Millions of Nigerians will today once again look up to President Buhari for direction regarding how to proceed with steps being taken to flatten the COVID-19 curve. They have been doing that since the outbreak of the pandemic. But there are many out there who believe that there is a lot more to be done and that he hasn't provided the right kind of direction that they expect. But the president also has his supporters. Should his handling of this public health emergency be used as a yardstick for measuring his handling of Nigeria's affairs in the past 5 years that he has been a democratically elected president? What about the war on corruption, economic recovery, and sorting out the country's hydra-headed security problems? Has the president done well? Joining us now from our Abuja studio to look at all of these and other issues is Dr. Law Mefor, a public policy analyst, a journalist, an author, and a social critic. Dr. Mefor, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Show.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Ruben.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you too for obliging us. But let's start from the general to the particular. On May 29, 1999, Nigerians expressed a return to civilian rule, with President Olusegun Obasanjo being sworn in at that moment. Many Nigerians describe that moment as the moment of second liberation for Nigeria. 1960 was liberation from the shackles of colonialism. 1999, May 29, was seen as liberation from the clutches of a military dictatorship. Now, 21 years later, when you look back, do you think that democracy has served us well? Do you think that the expectation that democracy will solve many of our problems has been met and that the military had been kept out of the space? Well, some of them returned, but in civilian guards. What's your take? What's your assessment?
That's a big one. I must say that the faith of so many of us has been shaken as far as democracy is concerned. Because 21 years down the line, what we are seeing is not precisely what we thought it should be. We started off as a civilian rule, seeing democracy as work in progress. So work in progress, we agree. But the question is, 21 years down the line, can we say that we have made substantial progress? In my estimation, the only progress I would say that we have made as a country in democracy is that we are still in democracy. If you take certain aspects of democratic governance and examine them closely, you will see that we are nowhere close. Take, for instance, the issue of elections. There is no democracy without elections. Elections in Nigeria have not improved. Everybody can see that. All the successive, elections down the line, each has been, worse than the previous one. This 2019 cannot be said to be better than 2015 presidential election. That's the point I'm making. And the reason for this is not far-fetched. What I see in the whole arrangement is an elite conspiracy. The people are not yet in the mix. The people have not been allowed to really dictate what a democracy should be. You see that in the clear absence of internal party democracy. The recruitment process of the flag bearers of the various political parties is left in the hands of a few who decide who. We are just talking about the case of Obaseki and Akeredolu now. Governors coming together to say they should be given the right of first refusal. That is not democracy. If you want to support Akeredolu and Obaseki, why not? But do you have to disenfranchise millions of others who would prefer other candidates as their governor? That's the problem here. So you can't say that we have made progress in terms of democracy. So if we started as a civil rule, I expect that by now we should be inching towards becoming real and full democracy. And that will not be possible until elections are elections, until people are in a position to choose who governs them. That is what democracy is about. People must be given the right to choose who governs them. They can choose anybody. That's their choice, and that is democracy. And you see, we have continued to progress in error, whether we like it or not. But the most disheartening aspect of this problem is that it is those who should actually defend democracy that are the ones actually making democracy to turn out to be a laughingstock in Nigeria. Let me use an example of somebody like Adams Oshiomhole, the former governor of Edo State. The first thing he did when he became the governor of Edo State was to remove the speaker with a minority of members of the House. And this is somebody coming from Labour who ought to be a champion of democracy. When he emerged as the national chairman of APC, his first assignment, which he put upon himself, was removing Saraki and Koremado as Senate President and Deputy. These are people chosen by their own colleagues to preside over their affairs. That kind of a problem. And look at what is going on now. You can see, the problem with, Obaseki and Adams Oshiomhole. This is not good for democracy. We have to allow the democratic space to, throw up some decency. It shouldn't, what I see, like I said before, is an elite conspiracy. Some people have hijacked our democratic governance, and they are circulating power around them. That is how I rate and see Nigerian democracy as at now.
Quite a bleak purview, if I do say. To take you back to one of your earlier comments, you said the best thing about a democracy now is the fact that we're still in a democracy, meaning all we have to say for ourselves now is that the military hasn't taken over. That is pretty grim. But I have to refer to an article that I read that you wrote called Love in a Time of COVID-19. I won't be nosy and ask who is your Fermina to Florentino, but I'll refer to your take on the character of President Buhari and the way he has handled this pandemic so far and his silence. Let's talk about his personality and what he brings to bear. You seem to be somewhat disappointed, but that he's not a sort of Dwight Eisenhower pater familias that's going to really soothe Nigerians and give us motivation or what have you. Why does that come as a disappointment to you?
Well, for me, I came across President Buhari as a boy. I think I was still in secondary school then, when he first came as a military head of state. We saw him, he came across as a gentleman general, an officer and a gentleman. We also saw him as a disciplinarian, a no-nonsense leader who would stop at nothing to get things really done. Now, that perception didn't change, amongst Nigerians when they thought that they needed to change President Jonathan. They looked in the direction of Buhari because we were having serious security challenges then. We were having problems with corruption, and the economy wasn't so wonderful also. Buhari, seemed to be tailor-made for the kind of change we looked for. But 5 years, he has been president. A number of factors have not actually allowed him to replicate the kind of Buhari we knew between 1983 and 1985. Health is one. He has not enjoyed the best of health. And until recently, he has not actually been strong. Then you have other factors, apart from health, age, then the military setting. He complained that, to fight corruption, when he did it as a military head of state, that he presumed you guilty until you prove your innocence. But in democracy, reverse is the case. You have to presume the person innocent until his guilt is proved. So democracy has not been quite easy for him to practice, even though he promised and assured us that he would be a converted Democrat. Eventually, somewhere along the line, he was able to adjust the democratic and civil rule to come more closer to what is used to, which is a military approach to issues. But even that has not been able to solve much of our problems. I will look at one or two factors to bring out the picture I'm trying to paint. The issue of security, for which we elected him. We cannot say that security has improved in Nigeria. You can see that, well, we can say that Boko Haram is, terrorism is de-escalating. Yes. Our military, our gallant soldiers have made a lot of inroads. They have done fantastically well in some instances, especially of late. Yes. But more fault lines are unfolding. Bandits have killed thousands of Nigerians. Headsmen, whether they are Fulani or not, headsmen have been killing and maiming without any respite, without any check. Look, even the president's, hometown, state itself, Katsina, Daura, has not been spared. Problems until recently, when special military operation was launched in Katsina, there has not been respite. Bandits took over the place, and not only Katsina, a number of other states. So what you can say that what you gained in fighting Boko Haram, you lost in other things. Now, this has rubbed off on the polity. So many of us feel so insecure as we speak now. It led to the formation of Amotekun. It's leading to certain the security contemplations by Southeast governors. And a number of other regions of the country are also planning to respond to this security. The police has been stretched to the limit. Nigerian police is the mother, I keep saying this, is the mother of all the security architecture. Even the army is a product of the police. It's a fact. Check the history. So if you don't get the police right, you're wasting your time as far as security is concerned. Our police is under-trained, is under-equipped, is undermined. If you have less than 500,000 policemen manning and policing 200 million Nigerians in 37 state locations, including FCT as a federal capital territory, 774 local government areas, and about 10,000 wards, you can see the inadequacy. So plain. Police are, have been stretched to the point that they cannot cope with the traditional responsibility of really guarding the state. They are the ones that should be doing the jobs done by the military at the moment. Nigerian soldiers are present in at least 23 states of the Federation performing police functions. What does that tell you? It tells you that the police have not improved for no fault of theirs. The reason is simple. This is a federal system of government. You cannot have a single police. That's the truth. You must have state police. It's inescapable. They claim that we are not mature for state police. It's a farce because the regions in the 60s had police. So if we were mature in 60s to run police at regional level, what makes us unripe, not to run police at a state level at this point? That is why we are facing what we are facing. Then, if you bring in the issue of the fight against corruption, do you think that corruption has, really become better managed in this administration? For me, let's call a spade a spade. We have had a few symbolic gestures by EFCC here and there, a few arrests, a few trials, and so on and so forth. EFCC is more into money recovery than fighting corruption. When I knew that the EFCC will not fight corruption was when they started with plea bargain. You don't do plea bargain with this kind of criminals. People that stole the country blind. You are shielding them. You don't want Nigerians to know who they are. As at today, even journalists do not know those who have returned money to EFCC. We don't know who they are. We don't know how much they returned. We don't know what they stole and from where. They are walking the streets. There is one little research I read a few days ago, which is very instructive and connects clearly with what we are looking at. 100 billionaires in Nigeria were analyzed, and it was clearly established that over 70% of them were either former or present government appointees or elected officials, or people who are government contractors, people who are connected with governance one way or another. These are people milking the system. And 70% out of 100. So you have less than 30 that are into job creation, who are industrialists, who are manufacturers. The rest are leeches. The rest are they are milking, exacerbating corruption. You know, because if you look at it, that somebody was a managing director of a bank, and he retires and becomes a billionaire. Are you saying that came from allowances and what? I don't get it. And these things are celebrated here. We have assumed a new normal in Nigeria, allowing all sorts to become normal here. Criminals are celebrated. Why should they be celebrated? Why should they be shielded by the system that should expose them? That's where the problem is. Then when you come to economy, you cannot say, in fact, to be fair to President Buhari, he has done a few things in the area of economy. Infrastructure, he has actually done a good number of roads, Second Niger Bridge, and this and that. Some airports have won a new look. Enugu is coming up now, and here and there. Then in agriculture, he has been able to sustain and improve the gains recorded by the previous administration. And that is one good policy of the Buhari administration, because he has been able to continue the good projects and programs of his predecessor. This is unprecedented. Past presidents will not. Past governors will not. So that goes for him. So I would say that in the area of economy, as the Frenchman would say, comme ci, comme ça, not too good, not too bad. He has done fairly well here and there. But then there are critical aspects of the economy where the president has not been able to scratch. Look at the issue of employment. It's escalating. Unemployment is a major issue, and it's a major indicator of a healthy economy. If you cannot put your finger on unemployment, then you cannot control the process. And the reason why the economy is not doing well and cannot do fantastically well is also obvious. The economy is regulated, managed from a unitary center. It shouldn't be so. The states are not producing. Look at the IGR of states. If you remove Lagos, remove Ogun, maybe one or two others, the rest of the states are just struggling. And what that means is that majority of the states, up to 60, up to 30 of them, 30 states out of 36, cannot survive without the allocation they get from the center. This is tragic. And why is it so? The real powers for economic development are held in the center by the 1999 Constitution. I will tell you what they are. Take, for instance, the issue of solid mineral. Why should it be in the center? It should be on concurrent list. In fact, it should go to states, because the federal government does not own lands. Lands are actually managed by the governors. So solid minerals ought to be controlled by the states. This is an anomaly. Look at the issue of power. We hear that power has been privatized. That's not true. Power has not been privatized in Nigeria, and I'll tell you why in a nutshell. If you say power is privatized, power is divided into three. You have generation, transmission, and distribution. Federal government is holding on to transmission 100%. What that means is that no state can transmit whatever it generates. So you can generate all the power you can, but you must pour it into the so-called national grid for the center to decide who gets what. And from the laws that I examined, all the state can generate and distribute at the same time is 5 megawatts. Five. I didn't say 50, 5 megawatts. Now, do you know that even GenCos, federal government is holding on to 40% of the equity? The records are there. So if you're holding on to 40% of GenCo, how can you say you have privatized? It is partial privatization. In fact, on the whole, privatization has not taken place in the real sense of the word. And I urge President Buhari to cancel privatization and go back to the drawing board.
Okay, Dr. Mefor, if I may come in here, you've commented on quite a number of issues, and I'd like to take you back to your second point, which was speaking about the current administration's war against corruption. And now, most of us have read President Buhari's article in Newsweek, whereby he was sort of analyzing the efforts of his administration over the last 5 years. And when speaking on the war against corruption, President Buhari commented on the Abacha loot and the fact that money being returned to Nigeria now, or money's being returned to Nigeria now, is actually happening. And he sort of alluded this to the fact that countries like the US or the UK see Nigeria as a more transparent country, and he tied that into his anti-corruption fight. Now, based on what you've said so far, I don't believe that that is an analysis that you would agree with, but how do you react to that analysis?
For me, I read that article also. The one that is talking about the COVID as the manufacturing moment for Africa. I read it. It's good. A beautiful piece written by an expert, but there is no background to all those claims. Abacha loot, $1 billion. What is the big deal about that? Is it only Abacha that has ruled Nigeria? We want to see the loots of other presidents of Nigeria. Nobody can convince me that it is only Abacha that stole from the country. This is a fact. The offshore records show clearly that a lot of Nigerian assets and money are out there, offshore. And the leaders know where the money is. They cannot go after the money because the owners of the money are still around and they are part of the players. That's the point I'm making. So if the president is beating his chest over, it's not even up to $1 billion. He said about it. It's not up to $1 billion. It's huge. But compared to what we are talking about here now, it's really low. It's not what we should celebrate at the continental level, as far as I am concerned. We are saying that, as we speak now, the governors that have ruled Nigeria from 1999 to date are more than 100. And only 3 of them are in jail. We want to see their EFCC records. We want to see that they are indeed clean. That is what can convince some of us that fight against corruption is going on. Take, for instance, the president in the same article you made reference to talked about, Africa manufacturing moment. I tell you, how many countries in Africa have the power-based electricity, particularly, to be able to anchor this? Maybe 1 or 2 countries, Rwanda, Egypt, Ghana, South Africa, maybe 2, 3 more. Certainly, Nigeria is not in the mix. We are distributing, as we speak, now less than 4,000 megahertz. In fact, if you notice improved power in your house since the pandemic, it is because industries are not running. Once they start running, we will go back to the same old story. We haven't improved. The carrying capacity is just because we do not want to face reality. What stops this country from moving electricity, power, moving it to the concurrent list, so that the states that have the capacity can exit the national grid, produce what they can, give themselves power, and sell the excess to the federal government and states that need it. This is how democracy runs. This is how federalism runs. You don't run federalism from a central source. There is nothing like national grid. You shouldn't have it. It's an anomaly. At best, it should be optional. Those who want to belong should belong. But the states that have the capacity to exist must. That is the only way you can talk about Nigeria being, amongst the countries to benefit from a post-COVID Africa, a manufacturing moment. I can't see us joining the league without electricity. It's clear. Without electricity, let me tell you, without electricity, coupled with the level of ease of doing business in Nigeria, that is almost the worst in the world, you will discover that manufactured goods in Nigeria will remain more expensive than what you get from China. So what are you going to do? Manufacturers will collect the foreign exchange and still import the same goods from China and sell rather than manufacture. Why would they do that? It's because it's cheaper to import from China than manufacture in Nigeria. And why is it more expensive in Nigeria? Because of power, because of other economic indices, because of the kind of tax. Have you checked the tax rates in Nigeria, the interest rates? Have you checked all those? It's about the most expensive in the world. Do you know that the country is facing a tragic condition in terms of economy? Are you aware that Nigeria is spending, or would soon spend, up to 50% of our annual budget on debt servicing? Not repayment, not debt repayment, debt servicing, to service the interest accruing on our loans. And we have had 3 successive huge loans. The current one is just a week old. You know, the approval was given by the National Assembly. That is another $5.3 billion. You know, these are facts. It will get to a point when the country may not be able to even service debts, let alone meet its recurrent expenditure.
Before we go very quickly, we don't have more time left. I would like to refer you to another article. This is written by Dr. Chidi Amuta in this day, and he too was assessing the Buhari administration. And he was saying that it's a devotee presidency. So do you agree with him that there is a cult of personality, those who call themselves Buharists, around this government? If you agree, what are the implications for President Buhari's legacy? Briefly.
You know, my brother Ruben, I mentioned earlier in my opening glade, I told you that what we have is an elite conspiracy. The process has been hijacked. The issue of cabal is real. You know, because of the health of the president at the onset of his presidency, he had to outsource much of the work to lieutenants. These people were not elected. These are men and women who are not elected, so they don't owe you and I any allegiance. So they run the country like a club. That's the truth. When Abba Kyari died, we saw a lot of tributes from people who, worked with him. You can see where they are all coming from. All their classmates, all this, all that, coming from Cambridge, coming from this and that. See, there is a clique running the country, and the clique is not patriotic. I have no problem with cliques if the cliques are competent. But like you asked, what should be the implications of this kind of problem on the legacy of the president? It's enormous, I will tell you. Because from what is going on, we have not seen the kind of competency that should really transform the country. Let me tell you, many of us expected a revolutionary transformation of the polity by President Buhari. I have to be honest with you.
Well, on that
in
note,
the area
Dr.
of fighting corruption,
well,
we wanted...
Dr. Mefor, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Revolutionary transformation is what we expect. Thank you very much.